Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Washington, D.C., it's Quintessential Listening, Poetry Online Radio. Now, here's your host, Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram.
Good evening, everyone. This is Michael Anthony Ingram, and welcome to the program. Tonight, my very special guest is C.M. Crockford. C.M., are you with me?
I am with you. How you doing, Michael?
I'm quite well, and yourself?
Not bad at all.
Well, good. I'm pleased. Let's begin this journey, all right?
Great.
What I'd like to ask you first is, what is poetry?
Whew, that's a loaded question. Let me think.
It is.
I think for me, poetry is an expression of the unconscious. I think it's an expression of deeper feeling than a lot of language can provide. And I think it's about breaking language down to its most fundamental, its most absolute.
All right. Why is it important?
I think because it creates the ultimate amount of meaning out of a piece of language, right? I mean, language is something we use just to communicate something so quickly. And poetry is about finding deeper meaning, finding something greater, and something, too, that is loose and unconscious. It's important and unimportant.
All right. Please share a poem.
Yeah, of course. All right. I'm going to do an older one first. I've got a couple new ones, but this is called Center City. I live in Philadelphia, and I lived in downtown for about a year. So this is called Center City. City nights are a lonesome thing, scarred and tattered, bent and used. They are not cruel, never cruel. He's fading fast in an empty bar. A diner sign flickers for all time. She kisses him, wants to run. Low, long sucks of coke. Boys shift in solid arms. Drinks flow like blood in the temple. Coffee cups, sticky plates. Broken things get swept away. All the dead hearts disappear before sunrise. Sighs when she sleeps. Her breath keeps a steady time. The rhythm of the world. By the window, lights flash in the distance. Then are embraced by the dark that brings them home. End.
I like that. How does a poem begin for you? With an image, an idea, or a form?
I think an image a lot of time, some central idea. I wrote one recently about a piece of trash I found on the sidewalk, and I'll read that in a little bit, but that's a good example. Okay. Sometimes I feel like writing a form. Sometimes I'll just play around with a limerick, or I like writing haikus quite a lot as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask this question. As you think about your body of work, what are some of the predominant themes of your work?
I think a certain fatalism. I think also the attempt to see the world through different eyes. I'm autistic in particular, and I think a lot of my work is influenced by that, by not being neurotypical, by having different observations about the world. But I think a lot of my work is about that. It's about connection of others, isolation, but also expressions of joy. I mean, I think that's all over my writing.
All right. Very nice. Please share another poem.
Yeah. Of course. All right. This is going to be a more recent one. And this is one I wrote recently in the middle of an anxiety attack. And this is called, this is for my partner. It's called Insomniac Love Poem. I left the bed, half asleep, sobbing, only on orders, only leaving you for that. You are my home, your hands, your heart, your eyes, the place I am safe. Your soft, patient skin, a balm for my restless hands. And
Now, Do you sit and think through every word of every stanza, or do you write freely and allow the words to flow?
A little bit of both. I'm a pretty strict editor. I mean, I also copy edit for spare money. So I think that makes me a bit of a stickler in terms of what language I want to use. But I also think that it's important when you're writing, especially in the first drafts, to really go unconscious with it and let yourself flow. It's something I'm trying to work on more as a writer, that was just letting the backseat of the mind take over, you know?
Mm. You know, all great writers have great writing influences. Who are some of yours, and what makes them great in your eyes?
Lately, Walt Whitman has been a huge influence on my work. I think he's a monumental writer, maybe the great American writer. James Baldwin, actually, his sense of, I think particularly his political thought is something I really admire, that he was a left thinker who was never too doctrinaire. He was never draconian. I always really admire that about his writing, about his thoughtfulness as a writer. I would say my favorite novelist is maybe Yukio Mishima. I also love Patricia Highsmith and her Ripley novels. But in terms of other poets, Whitman, E.E. Cummings. I also really love Sharon Olds. Her book Stag's Leap is really beautiful.
Right. You know, as you think about being a poet, what was an early experience that helped to shape your way of being around poetry, where there was a magical moment early on in your life that helped you say, hey, poetry is what I want to do?
Yeah. You know, in 8th grade, I think I wrote the first couple poems I ever really wrote for school, like for a contest, and I actually got, I think, 2 little poems submitted to this like young adult writing magazine, like one of those ones you can submit to in school. And I like doing it. It was 2 poems about waking up too late and about film and movie theaters. And I think I remember the movie theater one really being like, okay, I could maybe try keeping on this.
Right. Please share another piece of your work.
Of course. All right, this one is from my recent book, Mark the Place. It is rather timely, I think, especially considering last night's god-awful debate. It's called The President. The President Has No Poetry in Him. The President has no poetry in him. He looks at the stars and does not see the stars. He looks at the mountains and sees what he can take apart. The President has no poetry in him. He does not love his wife. He does not love his children. He does not love. The President has no poetry in him, only poison, and I pity what's left of his heart. End.
Wow. Share that one again. I like that. Share that one again.
Oh, you want me to read it again?
Yes, I really do.
Yeah. Okay, sure. The President has no poetry in him. The President has no poetry in him. He looks at the stars and does not see the stars. He looks at the mountains and sees what he can take apart. The President has no poetry in him. He does not love his wife. He does not love his children. He does not love. The President has no poetry in him, only poison. And I pity what's left of his heart. End.
Wow. You know, so much is happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
What do you view as being the role of a poet in modern-day society? What is our role?
I don't know if we have a role per se. I don't know if artists have a role generally. I think art is something people have a compulsion to do, to interpret the world, right? To interpret, to get their interpretation down onto paper in some way. But I think one of the things a poet can do is express something with greater meaning than a paragraph could, and do that with only a few words. And I think that's something that's really important right now, especially as language kind of gets shredded apart. And yet we're also seeing this weird resurgence of poetry on Instagram. and Twitter and other social media as well. So it's an interesting time for poetry.
Yeah, I agree. Let's take a brief break and we'll be right back.
Got it.
Crockford. The call-in number is 646-787-1631. CM, share another poem.
Of course. All right. This is another one from Marketplace. This one is, it's funny, I read The Outsider by Colin Wilson right after writing this, and I think it's funny how much that there was synchronicity in what I wrote here. This is called Agonizing Love. There's this open wound in me that makes the world hard to bear sometimes. I can't take rainy days, the ache received from knowing you're never free. The raw faces at subway stations, whose hands I want to hold while asking, are you all right? And as I write on yellow paper, desk swallowed by the dark, I try to believe I'm of the saint Cillian torment, who felt the same agonizing love, then reached salvation in the early stirrings of grace. End.
Right. What does being creative, and you're very creative, what does that mean to you?
For me, I think it's partly a state of mind. It's a place where I can feel liberated and open with what I feel. But I think it's also something people naturally do. It seems like art and really expressing yourself or something, people learn to do, for instance, in art therapy. And even if you're not professionally skilled, there's something really cathartic about getting down anything onto paper. I think right now is an era of more people making art for themselves, for better or worse. But for me, I think creativity is something that I do for myself, to express myself, to get something out there. I mean, it's striking. I wrote that anxiety poem and then felt a lot better once it was done. Funny how that works.
Share another piece of your work.
Sure thing. It's called Robbie Krieger on Your Lost Little Girl. His unwitting elegy for beach nights, swapping spit along peace signs, for the revolution that starved, staring at its own reflection, never glancing up to see them winning again and again. His playing is soaked by salt water, racked with careless prophecy, as he cycles back to the start, feeling through a grief he can barely understand, until it's been years since. Fingers at the chords in an arena named for a bank. And
you have a great voice. I'm sure you know that
Thank
already.
I've been told a little. Well, I co-host a podcast, so it's a good thing for that.
Okay. It really, really is. What do you view as being the relationship between your speaking voice and your written voice, if there is a relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a conflicted one. My speaking voice tends not to be as limber as my written one. I think writing is really where I get to hone what I want to say a lot of the time, or really get it down on paper. I'm often struck by how much my friends or people around me can articulate what I'm trying to say faster than I am when I'm just trying to speak. Nevertheless, it's been good, learning a little more lately how to articulate myself better. So that's something I've been working on myself.
Share another poem. I want to hear your voice. Share another poem.
Sure. Yeah. All right. This is one I wrote when my cat was particularly not feeling great. He's diabetic, so he just has ups and downs, but he's doing very well right now. We love him very much, and this poem's for him. It's called Shaun. Shaun. Leg mottled with shit. His mouth raw, sore. He shuts his eyes, knowing he was a god once, and will be so again. End.
Shaun.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect poem. Perfect poem.
Thank you.
Many writers have different ways of writing, different styles of writing.
Mm-hmm.
Some write on paper, then transfer to the computer. How do you write? What's your process? What's your preferred writing method?
That's a good question. I tend to use either my notebook I have, this beautiful spiral notebook I got, or did my partner get this for me? I'm trying to remember, but it's lovely. I also use this yellowed legal pads I use. I got the tip from James Elroy. He's a crime novelist, but he uses them because they're easier for him than spiral notebooks. And I feel the same way as I'm left-handed, so it's easier for me not to smudge the page when I'm using the legal pads. But I tend to use those. I write several drafts a lot of the time. I'm pretty thorough. Try to play around with the form, and then I transfer it to computer.
Okay, very nice. All poets, as we think about writing, have several words that come up over and over and over again in their work. Words or sentences that they just can't help but use in their work. What are 3 of your absolute favorite words to use?
Ooh, that's a good question. I use God an awful lot for some reason.
Okay.
Lonesome I've used a few times, or lonely. It's one of my favorites. I think kiss is something I've used a lot. I like that one. Just a beautiful word in general. It has that strong ending. K sounds too. I think embrace is something I like a lot as well. Really, that kind of intimate language.
You've written a lot, and congratulations on being nominated for the Best of the Net 2020. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you think that you were meant to be a poet?
What did you say?
Do you think that you were meant to be a poet?
I think I was going to be something no matter what. I think poetry is the best venue for me personally. I mean, God knows there's certain things I can't do. I can't do those ice sculptures. I wish I could do that, but this was my best. This was the best thing I could do, and I think it was the best expression of myself.
So what comes out of you when you write? What part of you is revealed to the public?
I think the unconscious one. Sometimes I've found myself expressing, dormant feelings that I usually don't really like to talk about. A few of the environmental poems I've written, usually I'm kind of shocked at what I've written sometimes. Yeah, I think a lot of times I'm expressing an unconscious place or more of an agonized one sometimes. Although I don't want to be Barton Fink, claiming that all writing comes from pain or something. It doesn't. It can be joyful too.
Yes, it can. I agree with that 100%. Please share another poem.
Of course. This is actually the poem that was just nominated for Best of the Net. It was published on Serotonin. They're a fantastic poetry website if you want to take a look.
All right.
This is called Sensory. The clapping hands, cannon fire. Thousands of them battering his skull. Sharp, sickening shocks. All the boy can do, scream. Mouth gaping, fingers clawing at temples. 15 years pass. He hears music in a great city. He's changed. He watches, listens. The instruments build into white noise. Inside, fevered cathedrals, delicate wombs. He knows it is a tower of sound where he would live in prayer to beauty, the violent discord of this world. End.
What makes a poem good? I know it's a subjective question, but what makes a poem good to you?
Very objective. I think what can make a poem good is, I think if the writer has a strong grasp of the instinct that got them there in the first place. I think that's important.
Very nice.
But also I think when the poem is allowed to find its own insight, that sounds pretentious, but it's kind of true. I think poems need to be an organic object.
So when you think about the prevalent ingredients that go into making up a poem, what should be included?
I think the sense of form, clarity. I think also, though, this sounds funny, allowing the poem to breathe. There's this one line I've heard once that was like, poems are never really finished, they're just discarded. Because you can never really finish a poem. It's a breathing thing, as much so as any work of art. And I think it's important that any writer worth their salt gives a poem room to breathe.
I really like that. Room to breathe. It's very nice. Very, very nicely stated. Very nicely stated. Please share another piece of your work.
All right. This is a newer poem. This is called Isle. Isle. Foot presses down on an old mayo pack, lying by the burning street. White stains brownstone brick, left a hollow shell behind. Wondering when it joins its brothers, deep in some empty sea. Turn legion of leagues of plastic, afloat in a jutted aisle of trash. Like vines creeping along garden walls. The horde expands further, further, till there is nothing. But cartons, cans, bottle caps. The dreams of all trash, buried in a rough crack of the Philadelphia sidewalk. End.
And the title of that piece was Isle, am I correct?
Isle, yeah. I-S-L-E, yeah.
Yes. And then you had the poem about Shaun. What role should a title play in a poem?
I think they can describe, I think they're good descriptors. I'm also terrible at coming up with titles myself, so I'm really not the expert on this, but I think they can give a sense of what the poem is going to be. That's just a preview. Also, I think they can be perfect little contrasts. I mean, we can look at T.S. Eliot, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock.
All right. So when you think about writing, and people write for a myriad of reasons, some write primarily to speak a message to the audience, others write because to stay silent is not an option. Why do you write? And very profoundly, I might say.
I think staying silent would be difficult for me. I think as any of my loved ones can attest, I'm somebody who needs to get things out. I think that's one of the reasons I write. I think I also write there to express some deeper feeling in myself, something that needs to get out. So yeah, I would agree with the second option there.
All right. Share another poem. Actually, share two this time.
Okay. All right, let's see. This is Denied. This is a tanka. Denied. I know you're upset about the bears dying and the earth boiling. I'm sorry, our hands are tied. Did you need anything else? Done. All right, and then I have to pull up my chapbook. I apologize. This is Beer and Rainwater. I walk out to the yard and tip the trash can on its side. Beer cans, ashes, glasses, chicken bones, rainwater, all spill onto concrete baked by sun. Rust-colored liquid spatters my leg, stray grass sticking to the thigh. Smell rises, hits wet summer air. I stand in boxers, swig from a warm bottle. I think of how the garbage has been full for 6 months. I watch a dull river drift down cracked pavement. I take another drink and tell myself again, I won't live like this anymore. Done.
Based on what you know about life, do you think that someone could be a poet if they don't feel emotions very strongly?
I don't know. That is a fair question. I tend not to connect as much with poetry that is more intellectual, not as intuitive.
Okay.
That's a fair question, though. I think someone could try to get at something even if they didn't always know how to express it properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's the thing of I think anybody can write a poem if they really know how to, or really feel the need.
If they really know how to. Give me more with that. If they really know how to.
If they have that instinct, that sense of I don't think what I can say can be wrapped up in a letter or a paragraph. I think that's when you have a poem on your hands, right? You have something you need to express, even if it's just a haiku or a limerick or something silly, or just a brief expression. I think that could be poetry.
All right. I agree. Please share another piece of your work.
Of course. All right. This is called Declaration. This is the opening of my chapbook. My partner's very happy to have me read this. Declaration. I howled out my love on the rooftop, begging all to hear the words, the hot core of life stumbling from my mouth. With all I felt falling out, couldn't catch my breath. The exhalation crashed and died of such a beautiful smile, next to the fear that had been running me ragged. I looked to the moon for a blessing to sanctify the prayer. It did not speak, yet she glowed brighter against the dripping tar in the mute, empty streets. That was enough. End.
Wow. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. I am here with C.M. Crockford. The call-in number is 646-787-1631. C.M., I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the most difficult part of the artistic process for you? The most difficult part?
Yeah. I think sometimes knowing when a poem is done, I think that's always really tricky.
Okay.
I tend to fiddle with things a lot. So, like I said, a poem is abandoned, not finished. I definitely am one of the people who has trouble with that. Yeah, I think also sometimes I go back through my work and will pick things out, which I think is a common problem for a lot of artists.
Right, all right. What's the easiest part, conversely?
Easiest part?
Yes.
I think sometimes, that's a good question. I think the writing itself sometimes can feel easy, even if it's not. Once it's really flowing, I think that's the easiest moments. When the writing is just pouring out, that's when it feels good.
Where do you go to write? Do you have a specific place?
I actually have a big writing desk. It's there in the middle of my living room. I go there to write a lot. Sometimes I'll just take a notebook and sit on the couch. Usually I try to write, sit on my chair, take some earplugs, just go for it.
All right, all right. Well, when you think about writing, what are you charged or energized by the process, or does it drain you?
A little bit of both. I think sometimes if the work's going really well, I feel great after. I feel charged up. I'm happy. I feel satisfied. A little tired, but satisfied. If I'm frustrated, yeah, I'm definitely drained. Or if it's a long-form piece, I'm usually a little more tired.
Do you have a lot of long-form pieces?
Actually, well, I read a lot of pop culture criticism. I've also written some short stories. One of my horror stories was published last year in Basterian. So I've written a lot of different things, honestly. Thanks.
All right, very, very nice, very nice. Please share another poem.
Of course. All right. This is called Hush Falls. I wrote this in New Hampshire when I was visiting my parents, watching the birds of the bird feeders. Hush falls after morning snows. The white claims the maples, the yellow birches. So not the birds, no. The nuthatches, chickadees, who fly, flock, feed among the dreaming. They refuse the quiet. They sing as if to wake the world from infinite slumber. And
the title of your first chapbook, or your first chapbook, is called what?
Adore.
And the title of your second book is Mark the Place. Tell us about your books. Yeah, tell me about Mark the Place, that particular book.
Mark the Place is basically the collection of everything I wrote over from around 2018 into 2019. I submitted the manuscript in December to Free US Publishing, and I'm so glad they took it and published it. It's been a wonderful collaboration. We're almost nearly sold out in the second printing, so I'm pretty proud of that. Yeah, it's been great. I'm pretty satisfied with the work we've done together. It's only 30-something pages, and yet it's probably one of the best things I've done. I'm really proud of it. It's currently out now. It's basically just a collection of poems. I tried to go for cohesion, but I think it's just ultimately the best expression of what I've been doing for the past few years.
Is it also available on Amazon?
I think it should be. I'd have to double check.
All right. Now, if you had to convince a friend or colleague to read your book, what might you tell them?
Ooh, that's a great question. What would I say? If you want romantic poetry of certain caliber, definitely check out my book. I think that would be my recommendation. If you need a peering into my mind, too.
If they need a peering into your mind.
Yeah, closer look, I should say.
All right. Share another poem, please.
All right, King. King I wrote for the Elvis Presley, and wrote this for Neologism Poetry Journal. It's basically, I think, this attempt to kind of extract who Elvis was on some level, even if that's almost impossible to say. This is King. Elvis dreams of trains, shining black clouds. Elvis couples, tender, devoted, strange. Elvis speaks in serenity. Elvis dresses in bright pink pants, hot colored jackets. Elvis is a man. Elvis is a witch. Elvis dies spent. Elvis becomes the hero. Elvis becomes the villain. Elvis lives in headlights, in movies, in Cadillacs, in open roads. Elvis rides in long, winding trains. Done.
Wow. I like that. I like all your work, but that particular one stands out to me because I'm an Elvis fan. So.
Oh, there you go.
I can see that. And would you do me a favor and share it again? I love that. Please.
Yeah, you want me to hear it again? Okay.
Yes, I would.
Yeah. King. Elvis dreams of trains, shining black cars. Elvis couples, tender, devoted, strange. Elvis speaks in serenity. Elvis dresses in bright pink pants, hot collared jackets. Elvis is a man. Elvis is a witch. Elvis dies spent. Elvis becomes the hero. Elvis becomes the villain. Elvis becomes too big. Elvis lives in headlights, in movies, in Cadillacs, in open roads. Elvis rides in long, winding trains.
Wow. Perfect poem.
Thank you.
I really like that. You know, they say that to see the world with complete honesty, one should look to comedians, artists, and poets. What do you think emerges naturally from your work? What emerges naturally from you?
I think a unique perspective on the world. Like I said, I think, though, also a sense of connecting things that otherwise I think I would see the world in a certain way because of my influences, my past, my life, what I've worshipped as a person. And Elvis is an example of that, where I wanted to make these connections or to get to the totemic root of him. And I felt like I could do that maybe because of my influences, my interests. So for me, I guess, when you get to the root of my work, it's things you haven't seen before or associated.
When you get to the end of your work, there are things that you've not had an opportunity to associate. Am I correct?
Yeah, connections.
What I just said?
Connections I think a lot of people would not make, especially if you're not autistic or not obsessed with certain things.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you think about that, what is a measure of success as a poet? What's a measure of success?
I think for me, knowing my work would endure would be enough for me. I think even if I never, see a lot of financial success from my poetry, a lot of people don't, and that's what 97% of poets.
Yeah,
but I think ultimately what would make me happy is if my work was remembered and loved and connected with people. That would be what's meaningful to me there.
Share another piece of your work. I enjoy listening to you read.
Thank you. All right, this is Beside You. I wrote this some time ago. I think it's a melancholy poem. Beside you. I'm weaved in, as stars are with the sky, as age in New England houses, until we sleep, separate sides of a king. We are entwined for so long, then we have to return to what we always are. End.
Wow. Share another. We're on a roll now. Right. Share another.
All right. This is a prose poem I wrote some time ago. It's written for Wild Boy magazine, so it's available on there if you want to take a look. The Cliffs. I dive off the rocks for the first time. The waters take me. I could never do this before. I'm Icarus welcoming his fall. I'm alive, new again. A man believing. The splash is a loud roar. Now I am drowned. Now I am the water. Now consumed and consuming until I rise again with the sun, singing harsh praise. I make my sound. End.
Has your idea of what poetry is and what it can do changed since you began writing poems?
I think so, yeah, absolutely. Especially as I've read way more poetry in the past few years, I also think that has really expanded my idea of what it can be, whether it exists in a certain form. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Share another piece of your work.
All right. This is called Mark the Place, and this is the title poem for my book.
Okay.
Mark the Place. I'll take you in the sharp and hollowed wood, moving like the world was stripped away, tearing into seeming teeth. A rabid dog meets another. Give me a drink of what's between, salting heavy tongue in such bloody fires. I'll take you to the bated breath, where the riders meet, whispering to their horses against the red desert sky. mark the place on scarlet brown skin. That's where my lips belong. And
you know, it's funny when I write poems, and I don't write a lot, not as much as I used to, but I have a habit of writing 3 at a time, or working on 3 at a time, 3 different ones at a time. Yes. Do you have a special ritual that you go through when you're preparing to write a poem? Do you have a ritual?
I do, actually. I tend to put in earplugs and try to live in the quiet a little bit. That's important to me in particular.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's important. Entering the unconscious a bit. Having the legal pad out, having my desk semi-organized. Semi-organized is the key term here. But, yeah, definitely those are important as rituals to me.
Well, what we're going to do now is something a little bit different than I've done in the past. I'd like you to perform a concert. 5 to 7 of your works. So it's just a mini concert with you as the featured artist. So this is your time to share whatever you like. All
right. You know what? I'm going to read. This is funny. I'm going to read a thing called Tony's Theme. This is a piece I wrote for the Philadelphia Secret Admirer. I think it was published anonymously, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay.
This is about a rhino. Tony's Theme. See Tony the rhino. He lives at the Philadelphia Zoo. Tony's in his 50s, confirmed bachelor, according to the guide watching with you. Look at the wooden fence posts that mark where Tony and his neighbors, the zebra, live semi-separately. The patch of land is barren, and the grass is a blotchy, sad brown. Watch Tony rumble over behind the posts to visit the zebras in their area. He mostly gets along with them, except when they decide to ignore him. Notice Tony's eyes, docile and even-tempered, buried under large, sloping eyelids. The guide mentions the rhinos, contrary to the media's depictions, are gentle and good-natured. You feel sorry that these jet creatures are so misunderstood, that the horns and size are all that are seen by humans. Laugh like a kid at Tony letting out a massive stream of piss by the zebra's watering pool, because you can't help it. See Tony spending time with the zebras, which he must do every day because he's used to it, and because he's lonely. Perhaps the zebras, even if they cannot understand him and his patterns, his social cues, can't accept him. Know you've had the same isolation, the same hunger for company. Be recognized and loved. Say goodbye to Tony, who treads back to his own space, where he'll be observed for the rest of his days, eating, sleeping, and greeting old friends. End. All right. With the stars. I play with the stars at night, and they shine and crack like shimmering hard candy. They're bright and cruel. They know their moods. But sometimes they just shake their heads, saying, no, some other time, maybe. I can feel terror on my chest some mornings, feeling like Giles Corey pressed into rebellion. But it's all right. Comes and goes. I still get to play with the stars and feel their cool glow as the trees waver while the sky hovers over, aching to join us. End. All right. This is called No Poem for Daniel Jones. There is no poem to be written, no language that describes what's already taken place and what is on its way. All right. This is 2 haikus I wrote. Haiku number 1. The tangle of her trees, the tangle of her red hair, rich in morning light. And haiku number 2. Eliminate the unnecessary. Good for writing, bad in life. End. And then I think I have one more poem.
All right.
Encompass. All right. This is Encompass. Naked, shining, my body merges with dark. Skin disappearing into hunger. Thick shade embracing. Lost in the deep. Black mystery twinkling in sharp, delicate secrets. And
how busy are you in terms of social media? Are you actively involved with social media? On social media?
I am, yeah, a little more than I should be. I'm disconnected from Facebook pretty much, though.
Mm-hmm. So which particular social media?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
Twitter. What's your Twitter,
and
Twitter
Instagram
handle?
as well. My Twitter handle is my Twitter is CM_Crockford.
All right. And Instagram?
Instagram, it should be about the same. Can't find my phone, but it should be the same thing. CM Crockford.
CM Crockford. All right. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Share some more of your work. I feel like I'm interrupting. I don't know. I just want to hear your voice. I don't know why. Tonight I just feel like I just want to listen. I want to listen and indulge me.
Sure. All right. I have 2 more poems to read, I think.
Okay. All right. I don't want to run you out.
No, only because I'm almost out of material. This is all right. This is actually one that's not published, but it's I wrote it for my cousin's dog, Cody. He takes up the bed, dog's body sprawled out. No matter. I do not mind if I can feel his love, his eyes touched by something outside the human, purged of the little weaknesses and bound by grace. And this is called Dad. This is a rather personal one, but it's something. Dad's sick. He has a few years left, but no cure. I think of milk cartons when he tells me this. I think of bomb timers to be diffused forever in the cartoons, the Bond movies. He was always there to stop it. His hands have pain inside them. He lies down after running errands, like Superman needing rest, like Batman slumped over on the bed. When does the timer go off? When do we lose him? Lose, like he's a child in a supermarket. He's being taken. How do sons live without their fathers? I dreamt I was in the back seat, my father driving in the deep of the night. I could see him there, eyes on the road, glasses shining in the headlights, a glint of gold. I knew then that I was all right. I turned. When I looked up, he was gone. End. You know what? I can give you one more poem here. All right.
Okay.
All right. This is called Swastika, November 8th. I wrote this right after the Trump election in 2016. Rough, raw, bloody on the wall, dripping from its pores like sticking wounds. It happens again, 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 again. A scream reaching out for stranglehood, a symbol of continuity. End.
Do you have a writing group or community of writers that you share your work with?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I do. I've been doing poetry readings up until the pandemic, unfortunately.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you enjoy about poetry readings? What do you enjoy about being live like that?
I think I love reading in front of people. I love getting that kind of feedback to my work, but also the community. I really love seeing certain faces. You know, every time I can go there, there's a sense of community that I think is something you need as an artist sometimes.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. That it's just a different feeling when you're involved in that way. When you put your stuff out there and people can hear it just in real time, it's different. I like it as well. As you think about you're an accomplished artist now. You know that, right?
I'm okay. I get by.
What advice would you give an aspiring poet about publishing, about anything? What advice would you give them?
Right now, I would say keep writing.
Yes.
I would definitely say that. Keep writing, keep going, try different ideas, different forms. Read as much as you can. Read everything. Read as differently as possible, and see if that comes out in your work. So that'd be my advice. And don't give up on something if you think there's a quality to it. Don't give up on it. Not yet.
Because it's really easy to give up, CM. It really, really is.
Yeah,
being a person who gives up quite often, it's really, you start thinking, well, I can't do this. This is not sounding like I'd like it to sound. It's not reading like I'd like it to read. And sometimes you feel as if, and I'm speaking personally here, that you feel as if you pay a cost when you keep writing and writing and working on something, and then it doesn't pan out. So I don't know what to do with that. Any ideas?
I think sometimes you have to accept your losses, but I think it's also okay to take your wins too, or to see something through. I think both things are important. Knowing when something's over and knowing something's not. What did Yogi Berra say? Like it ain't over till it's over. That was his line.
Yes.
Yeah, Yogi Berra's fun.
Well, let me ask you one last question. I'm going to let you go here because I know it's a long
evening.
When people hear your work, I'm sure they want more. I know I want more. I can listen all evening, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm.
What's next for you as a poet?
Right now I'm really working on self-care, first things first, in terms of my writing. But, what I'm really trying to do is, I think, find a new approach to this. I love what I've written so far, but I think my next work I'd want to do something very different. I'm just trying to figure out what that something is yet.
Okay.
I think maybe a new approach to form. The last poem in my book, Summer Rising, is really where I'd like to go more as a writer. But getting there is the difficult part. Writing will be easier.
So it's a journey. It really is a journey.
It is. It
is. Well, what I'd like to say to you is thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much,
Michael.
Thanks
Incredible
for
having me. I've run out of questions. You answered everything in a wonderful fashion, and I wish you nothing but the best.
You too. Thanks so much, Michael. Thanks for having me.
All right. Goodbye. CM, take care.
Take
and
care.
to our listening audience, good night.
Good night.
You have just listened to the Quintessential Listening Poetry Online Radio Podcast with your host, Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. And make sure to catch our next episode.